What's this podcast about again?
Definitely about ham.
Today we're joined by Mark Wiles of Mark Wiles Photography and Serena Domino Hildebrand and Chris Juergen of Monsters and Lace.
Experimental photography, decades in the making.
A modern twist on classic fantasy.
I'm Jesse.
I'm Lee, and this is Art Unlocked.
Mark, would you like to go first?
Sure. I don't know. I've been doing this for a bit, and by a bit I mean I don't know, for a long time. And my style is whatever it is in that particular 3-year cycle. I get tired of what I'm doing pretty quickly, and then it takes me about 3 years to learn something new. So I've been doing kind of a 70s, 80s style direct lighting for a little while now that I've really been enjoying. I kind of like to give an atmosphere of there was a party happening and someone picked up a point and shoot camera. So that's been a lot of fun. I've also been doing a lot of stuff with colored gels and really trying to make intense lighting patterns. But lately, what's really been getting my attention and really been exciting for me has been doing more trippy work, which I believe Lee has some examples of.
All right, so
tell us about yourself, Monsters and Lace, Chris and Serena.
Monsters. It's a type of cheese. We like cheese.
Yeah, I always pronounce it Monsters.
Monsters. It's actually Monsters and Lace, which is just cheese and lace.
Hey,
that's the whole entire thing. No, but we started how many years ago? Like 4 or 5?
Probably at this point.
I have no idea.
Okay.
We started out with costumes and makeup, and then we got into photography. And we started out with what did we use? Like a tiny little my parents' camera, which is extremely old, and we used janky lighting.
Yeah.
It was great.
We had a Home Depot work light.
Yeah, it was great.
Did that work well for you?
Moved onward from there. We slowly got better, and then we started using smoke grenades and color gels and all kinds of stuff. But I remember the good old days. The good old days of.
Are those the good old days?
Yeah. Home Depot, and we were just like.
I like to refer to those as Dark Ages.
Hey, we were
Work lights are bright.
Budget.
Yeah.
Dark Ages.
I like the
I
plant
think
leaf, by the
we
way.
were a little bit better, but I still love those good old days.
We've progressed.
We have definitely progressed.
What have you been doing with this quarantine time?
I've actually been pretty busy because I'm actually still working 100% remote, but I feel like sometimes I'm missing out on all the cool stuff all these people are doing with the amazing amount of time they have. I'm still doing a little bit of shooting. Of course, I live with a model, so that's fantastic. We did a set last weekend, and in fact, one of the photos I'll be showing was from that set. Probably planning something for this weekend too.
Was it the one where her face was like, woo?
Yes.
Yeah, I like that. Woo!
We'll show that one in a moment. Yeah, we have that.
Woo!
Yeah.
There's the woo.
Yeah, so Mark,
There's the
can you
woo.
talk about I guess sort of your vision with this and anything that you want to share about the creation of the image?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is the more I look at this, the more I think it's not done, and I may have released it a little too soon. I can see more work I want to do to it, more detail I want to get into, but that's always how it is when someone is starting to learn a new style. There are always a lot of, should I have done this? Should I have done that? I don't know. Maybe I save it for the next one. But anyway, I just really like how it's something different than a lot of what a lot of other people are doing around here. And I always want to stay fresh and different, because if I'm doing the same thing everyone else is doing, there's no reason for a model to choose me over someone else.
Okay. Do you think was there anything that sort of like inspired the image, or did you just like wake up one day and be like, so what if Beth's face were more of her face?
Well, I've been looking up some duotone stuff, tutorials and stuff like that. Looking up compositing, and I'm always trying to learn new techniques. And every once in a while, I find a way to bring something together with new techniques I've been studying, and that's how this came about.
Awesome.
Did you think of doing that, like that blur with her face? Did you go into it thinking that this is what you wanted to do with it?
Yeah, this was absolutely the idea from the get-go. And I had her act as if she's falling. That's what I told her to do. I said, I want you to like not hurt yourself, but fall as you're doing this.
Yeah.
So with
how
the
long
falling,
did it take you to edit it? I'm just curious.
That was probably a whole night. So probably from like 6 till 10.
Mm-hmm. Looks fantastic.
Lots of iteration, lots of cleaning up little things, lots of details I work on that no one's ever going to see on the phone. I don't know. I always like those little perfections anyway. But I will say that I want to add some elements to the background. Though I do like the nice little like odd gradient I have there, I think I can do more with that.
Hmm. So it'd be just like a different type of gradient, like it would be just to contrast it more with the colors that are in her.
No, I'd be compositing more elements onto the scene.
Okay. Yeah, I love the colors, the way you're working with your magentas and the oranges there.
Thank you. Yeah, color is one of my big things. I really like color. I often intentionally try to choose a color palette for a shoot. Yeah, it's nice to just blast color out there, but it's even better when those colors look like they make sense in a scene.
so what do you think were your biggest challenges in creating this? I mean, like obviously a new skill set, but like could you like elaborate on any challenges that you faced in creating this? Because there's a lot that went into this.
It's always difficult to enter a new mindset, and it's tough to tell. It's also tough for me to tell when something's done, especially in a more conceptual project like this. I'm never quite sure. I was, I don't know, an hour or two into it, and I thought it might be done. And then there I am 2-3 hours later. Oh yeah, now maybe it's done?
Okay.
Yeah.
So like Chris and Serena, you've been doing you said you've been shooting a lot during this time. Do you want to like talk about the work that you've been doing?
Well, we did one photo shoot where I was an angel, and we just made the whole entire backdrop out of fabric. So, yeah, that was the whole entire thing. And then what else have we been doing? Doing a lot of shibari, a lot of bondage, and we've been going out to like nature spots a lot, like bluebells, magnolia, cherry blossoms.
Should I bring up one of those magnolia shots you had?
Yeah, so while we were doing this, it was extremely windy and it started raining, and that's why we put the tool up in the tree, and like our lights kept on like falling over, and it was just madness. But we got some good shots. So
That's good.
yeah.
So
Very
did you go to the location like planning on doing something like this, or was it more of like a flowers are pretty, let's see what happens kind of thing?
This was the place I took you before, Lee, but they were just starting to bud, so they are finally in full bloom.
This isn't at the cemetery.
This is not the cemetery, no. I mean, I saw a bunch of flowers coming up in the cemetery, so I think tomorrow I will be running. We drove past them today. I was like, oh yes, flowers.
I'm going to scroll one way or the other. This is the other ones that you have.
Oh yeah, that's
the
bluebells.
Yeah.
Which we went on a bit of an adventure to get there because we went into the wrong entrance and had to go along some railroad tracks.
We almost got stuck. We almost got the car stuck.
Oh, we got there. We made
So could you
Huh?
could you like take a second to sort of talk about like the thought process that went into creating something like this?
Yeah.
Well, I already knew where the location was and I knew what it looked like. And I got this blue dress like months ago just for like bluebell season. So I don't know if there's like a lot more past that, other than being like, I know that bluebells are coming up. I have a blue dress. And then Chris and I were like, let's go out.
Yeah, and you see the consistencies then with the flowers and the dress and the wispy light blue, and then I'm going to go back to the previous one where you have a lot of the same elements here, the wispy pinks, magentas, right? And
Yeah, we're doing a whole entire rainbow spring series where we have all tulle and we're doing like every color of the rainbow in like a very flowy, pretty way. Yeah. So you'll be seeing all the other colors of the rainbow like as we go along in the spring. It's okay, I didn't do red yet, so
There's still time.
yeah, there's still time.
obviously the wind was blowing on this one. Oh yeah, we have this one.
Oh yeah, that's the cherry blossoms. We found this fantastic cherry blossom orchard. We just ran around it. Pretty much we try to find places by like driving around and we're like, that looks nice.
Mm-hmm.
When we go there.
Yeah, we stumbled upon that one. That was a good find.
Yeah, it was gorgeous and we got the whole entire sunset. Yeah, so there wasn't actually a lot of like planning other than that we saw it and we were like, I was like, I need to wear pink.
So like, would you say you spend like a lot of time like scouting locations for future things?
Yeah, because we both hike a lot, so a lot of times like we know when certain flowers or certain times a year when something is like really, really pretty. And then I'll like plan a look behind it or sometimes the whole entire costume.
So what do you think have been your greatest challenges with the whole lockdown situation in terms of creating?
Well, we can't go out with as many people. And usually this is like a huge photography season where I'd be going out and getting all these people in magnolia trees and bluebells and creating all this art. So that's pretty tough because, yeah, it's just like Chris and I. Still having fun though, but very sad that we can't do it with like a million people.
Yeah.
What did you say the other day that we only have?
Oh, I was getting bored of myself.
You're like, I'm bored of myself.
I was just like editing a picture of myself and I was like, I am done with myself. I'm done with seeing my own face. I don't want to photograph somebody else's face.
Aw.
I'm fine. I'll be fine.
I'm going I think I'm
Lockdown
gonna jump
madness.
to one of Mark's that is a similar color scheme, but very, very different. There.
Oh, that's. I was like, that's just me. I love
Yeah,
that.
so reason why I brought this one up because it's like the last one we were looking at, it was, nature, and it was very much like this is what's happening. Like, you're looking for the setting, and here's like a setting that's made. This is artificial, but it's like here's an intention coming through, right? This is these imagined colors and such like that.
Yeah, for this, I actually have a door here with Wayne's panels on it, and I added additional stripes to it with some painter's tape, and then shot my strobe through that door onto the subject. Actually, I'm sorry, onto the background. I believe the subject's lit with a different light there.
Did you also use gels for that?
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's just
Like pink and purple.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been able to perfect like pink and purple gels. I don't know why.
They're tough. They take a lot of practice to get right.
Yeah.
And this in particular, with the balance of the shadows and everything, we worked on that for quite a while to come up with that.
Yeah, because that gives me like a huge like vaporwave feel.
Yeah. It also makes me think of a lot of like street photography that you see like at nighttime and like in like Brooklyn and also Tokyo, just because it has a very neon feel to it.
The
I
back
dig that. That's one thing I wish I did more of. And I've thought about going out with models and doing kind of faux street photography, but
Hell
I've
yeah.
never quite gotten out of it what I'd like yet.
Mhm.
That
Like just
background.
like lights at night.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Chris and I did that in Lancaster, where we just found like a couple signs, and then we used crystals to like bounce the lights around,
hmm
so it makes it look like bigger, like we're not in a tiny little city.
Actually, there is one from a number of years ago that is still one of my favorite photos of Beth, where we were just walking home one night. I even shot this with my phone. And we were on Orange Street in front of a church on some stairs, and there are these two little lights on the stairs right beside her. And I was just like, go sit there. And I loved it. I just heard her giggle in the background.
I love like just the random little like, oh, that looks nice. Photographers, you can tell you're around photographers when we're like, go sit there. Sit there now. It's perfect.
So, Mark, I know that for a long, long time, like especially like when we first met, your focus was doing more of like natural light work, and that was your focus for a number of years.
It was.
Could you like sort of describe like why and how you made the transition into artificial lighting?
In my old apartment, I moved in there from my previous situation shooting in a basement. And I just had this fantastic natural light. It came in beautifully, like right at the right time of day. And I was so happy for this new look. And like I said, I'm always after the next new thing here. And I shot it and I shot it and I shot it. I love the results, but there comes a time when I just have to move on. And then I started working with, I think I worked with continuous lights for a bit, and then moved on to strobes. But yeah, I just like the constant evolution.
So what were, like, do you think you really had any challenges with that transition?
Yeah, learning, because it had been so long since I had used any artificial lighting. I lost my sentence there. Because it's been so long since I had used artificial lighting. And I wasn't nearly as skilled of a photographer back then as I was when I restarted using it again. I kind of had to learn it from scratch. Back in my basement days, I set up two lights, probably at each 45 degrees to the model, and hey, there's my nice even lighting. Well, yeah, it is nice even lighting, but it's the same lighting every time.
Mhm.
But yeah, watched a lot of tutorials, did a lot of experimentation, and eventually kind of found my niche
We went to the school of YouTube.
there. Yes, absolutely.
We're all
Yes,
big YouTube fans. Like, how do I do this thing? We're like, YouTube will tell me.
yes.
Mark, in that photo, how many lights did you use?
I'm thinking there were at least two, possibly three. There might have
It
been
kind of
two.
looks
There
backlit,
might have
too.
been two that were basically the same color.
Okay.
So what I'm seeing from this is, okay, so there's like the red gel that's on Jenna from the front, and then I'm guessing like through the door you had a pink, and so what we're seeing from the purple is it shining through the tape, and then the blue being the shadow caused by the I can't speak English, the window things.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's
Window
that
pane?
or if there's kind of a bluish purple going onto her, and then another slightly different purple coming through the door. It's tough to say anymore.
Now, Mark, not to reveal your age to the group, but back like when you started, it was like in the pre-digital days. And how do you think that starting with film and making that transition affected your shooting style, if at all?
I've always been a very technical person, and shooting with film definitely made me make sure my exposures were 100% right for every shot, because you can't just look at the back of the camera and hope it's close. And I got very technical with that. And actually, being overly technical is something I kind of have struggled with, in that I know for the longest time I would have described my photos as artistically sound but soulless, and it really took me a while to overcome that.
Okay. And from my experience, a lot of folks that start with film, they shoot, even when they transition to digital, shoot very deliberately. So like a lot of thought goes into each shot. Would you say that that's the case with you?
I'd say that's the case most of the time. Every once in a while, I will just have a spontaneous, let's get together and see what happens. But that's getting to be more and more of a rare situation.
That's what we did together, and that's how you got McDonald's cups in front of my titties that had plants in them. The McDonald's titty cup, and be like, Mark and I, that was our first photo shoot ever, and he came over and he was like, do whatever you want, and I was like, I got these McDonald's cups with plants in them, and I was like, that's still one of my favorite photos.
I love that shot so much.
In fact, I think I showed that in Mulberry, didn't I?
I think so. Didn't you? Yeah.
Mulberry? The McDonald cup titties? No, that was
when I had the show down there with the wine.
Oh yeah, that was like 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, that was a while now.
So at the time that you did that shot, I had already known Mark for like a number of years at that point. And then, and I've told Serena this, but when I saw that picture, like with the McDonald's cups, crazy expression on their face, holding the plants, I was like, this is somebody that I need to know. So thank goodness that picture happened.
Aww.
And then we met, and you were like, we were meant to be together.
Yeah.
Wait,
on a philosophical
aliens.
You had mentioned, Mark, that you went from being having your photos being like technically balanced and perfect to being, but they were soulless, then to having soul. Then was it that your intention was more about the expression of what you were doing? Is that what changed, or was it like were you more focused before on the technical aspects and that's why it was soulless, or like how did you make that switch? Like what was different?
Sometimes you see your own faults most in other people, and I've kind of noticed some of my friends following that trend, and I wanted to get out of that. I wanted to make my photos say something. I never really liked when someone asked, what story am I trying to tell with this photo? And a lot of times you're not trying to tell a story, and I never liked that question. However, I do feel that sometimes there is a mood you want to convey. And that's often a lot more what I'm going for now. I want to convey a mood rather than, just a technically good photo.
I like that answer. That answer had to do a lot with the person's expression and understanding of your experience of your art, rather than it being just like, well, this is what I'm trying to convey, and you should listen. Like it's almost like you're. It was suggesting that you're like almost like a fascist, like I'm making this art and you should only experience it this way, where you're saying like I want to create, like I'm creating a mood by which other people can experience when they look at that.
Exactly.
Sorry, that was a weird ramble, but there you go.
Just because so I'm obviously in this one, but
there you are.
Lee is the Starbucks baby.
Do you know what happened to that? Okay, tangent. Do you know what happened to that hat?
Is that the sorting hat?
If you cannot find it, it's probably in our house, and I will find it for you.
Okay, so it might very well be one of the hats that I put on all the time when I come over. Okay, because that was my hat, and I can't find it anywhere. So you left it here, and you keep on wearing. You're like, this hat is so nice. It's because it's your hat. Yeah, so I'll be stealing that sometime.
You're like stealing your own hat back.
Yeah. So I know that I was there for this, and I know the answer to the question that I'm about to ask, but can you just sort of talk a little bit about what's going on here?
Okay, so it was during the Area 51 raid thing, and we pretty much came up with the concept of what would you do if you brought these aliens home, and how would they integrate into society? So we had like smoking and drinking beer and taking selfies and drinking Starbucks. So a lot of our photography is just really stupid and ridiculous. We like to see a lot of like humor. We like to do a lot of costumes. So I think this is like a good representation of like half of what we are.
Yeah.
It is ridiculous.
Yeah. I think it's a lot of what you are.
Yeah,
So how much
we all did makeup on each other, and we pretty much came up with a lumberjack, hipster, alien, and all that kind of good stuff.
So could you talk about like how much of this was like practical makeup versus post editing?
We lightly put on makeup, so I actually did quite a decent amount of editing where I made our eyes black and I made the skin more green, and I just added a lot more oomph to it, I guess. Is that a good answer?
Yes.
I'm not very technical. I can just do things. But as far as talking technical, I'm like, I did things, and I made things happen, and I think it looks good. Thank you,
So you mentioned
for telling me how to do this. YouTube.
Huh?
YouTube. University of YouTube.
Right? Ugh. I want my diploma from YouTube U.
YouTube.
So you mentioned that during lockdown you're doing a lot of shibari stuff, whether that's like one of the next steps for y'all. How is that gonna, if you can share, how would that be different from the other shibari stuff that that you've done? Because like, how do you see your shibari work sort of evolving?
Well, we've come up with a couple more like complicated ties, and Chris also tied me up while I was an alien. Not an alien. I was a zombie, pop zombie. I did a pop zombie look, and Chris tied me to a chair so I couldn't bite anyone. You should have had that picture in there because we did that on lockdown.
We just
No, we got some on it. Yeah, we have some cell phone pictures.
Oh, yeah, there was.
Yeah, I was a zombie, and Chris tied me to a chair. Art.
We want to start progressing. I think the Shibari we want to start working towards doing suspension and stuff like that. Because we've been at it for quite some time. It was probably like a year now, 2 years almost, that we've been doing the Shibari, and like kind of suspension is just like kind of the next logical like step, because it's just really cool and you can do a bunch of really cool acrobatic looking things. So we're kind of gearing up to move into that, I think, with the Shibari.
So we just did one light suspension a couple days ago or a week ago. I don't even know what time is anymore. Yeah, so we did like a half like suspension thing just to like start practicing and getting our feet off the ground. I'm fine.
You're proud of yourself.
Yes. So that's our next step in Shibari.
Okay,
Do you have
awesome.
set up at your apartment to do suspension there? I mean, do you do it from that beam?
Yeah, so we just added some hooks in the back, just like big flag bolts. They're like 1,200 pound rated hooks that just go into like a big support beam. So that's gonna be like the next, like I said, the next step, I guess. We just gotta get some rated rope, because we don't want to suspend with stuff that we don't know is capable of holding people, because dropping somebody would be pretty bad.
Yeah.
And then just make sure that our ties are good enough to suspend from, make sure everything is like nice and tight and locked down, and you know what I mean, that all the basics are covered and we're doing everything right before we start picking people up, because the we call it, the odds go up as you lift people up off the ground,
Yeah, for sure.
You make a mistake just tying somebody up, you can easily untie them, but if if a rope breaks or something tied in the wrong spot, you could mess up people's circulation, and that so the risk factors go up. So we just want to make sure that we're, doing everything proper.
You should talk to Kyle Uditsky, though. He was at one of the BDSM workshops we had at the studio, and he knew a lot about like different types of weighted rope and like what happens when you're moving around and how that changes with knots and like a knot. Like he knew all the physics, so I would suggest him as a resource if you need any of that.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely catch up with that.
Also, YouTube Academy is really great.
Well, I mean,
Sorry.
you need to
Are you
trust.
working for YouTube? Do I not know?
So just talk to us a bit about this shot.
Okay, this is a prime example of what I was saying earlier about the look I'm going for, where there's some sort of party going on and someone just happens to pick up a camera. It doesn't look posed. It doesn't look like traditional beauty lighting, but still, that's not an excuse for shitty lighting. Still, the lighting is definitely planned out and purposeful.
Okay.
I love the look.
Such pretty red hair. Love it.
Yeah.
And so you said you've been. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
A lot more goes into these than one might see just by looking at something like that. That's probably a good 2 hours of editing, dodging and burning, getting all the details just right, making the balance of the shadows and highlights just perfect. I wish I could say my photos look like that right out of the camera.
Dodging and burning. It's the way to go.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love the shadows on that. I love the lighting, the coloring. It's good.
So for folks who might not necessarily be overly familiar with the process of using dodging and burning with editing, can you sort of talk about like your process with that?
Yeah, I'll liken it to doing contouring with makeup. I knew you'd like that.
It's true.
Yeah, it's bringing lights and darks to the proper places on the face to accentuate the look you want to go for. But you don't just stop on the face. For this, I did a ton of work on the hair to give that kind of depth and detail there, and on the shirt as well.
This is great. It has a great feel to it. It just, yeah, like you said, it's like, was it a party, like something was just happening, and like what was just happening, like, and what's about to happen now, like you can tell it's mid something.
Exactly, it's a mood piece.
Yeah, like I want.
It does sort of make me wonder what the rest of the party was like and like what the vibe was there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, for me, I don't necessarily feel like a specific mood from it. It just makes me curious. I look at it and there's something about like the expression on the model's face and the pose that makes me just very, very curious, and I want to know what's going on for her.
She was absolutely amazing with expressions. That's one thing I saw right away from her. From the moment we started shooting, she was just nailing these confident poses.
And have you worked with her since?
I haven't yet. I was actually planning to shoot her again for a show I have coming up, but who knows? This could be a casualty of the virus. I don't even know what the plan is for the show at this point. If it's still going to go on as scheduled, if I'm going to have time to shoot new work, or if I'm going to have to use existing work.
The metaphor casualty of the virus might not be a good one to use.
True. Yeah.
Leah, you
Wait,
had
I have this picture that Mark took of me that's really ridiculous. Can I just send it in the group chat?
Sure, I'll pull it up then.
It's very serious. Mark, I need you to talk about your process of taking this photo.
Oh God.
Okay.
I'm fine. Yeah, Mark. Give me an in-depth description of the feeling behind this photo.
So it's not up yet.
when Mark was taking this photo, I came home from work and this like the whole like living room is rearranged and here's Mark and Serena shooting in the living room and I'm like, what is going on?
Hey, I'm back.
Almost
What
weird
happened
Eddie
there?
was just like carrying plants around. I was like, what about these ones? Yeah, there you go. That's Mark and I's first photo shoot together.
That was a fun shoot. That was
I
such
actually
a fun
got like
shoot.
pots and stuff. We were just super poor artist creatures, and we're like, oh, we have McDonald's cups and sheet cups.
Oh gosh, like it's like that though. Like I know some of my plants right now are like propagating in cups that I took out of the cabinet.
Yeah.
And like you use what you have. Like you use what you have.
See, this is a good like start for me to be like, this is where I was, and now I have a whole entire jungle of plants. So
Yeah.
I'm so far.
I think you still had a decent number back then, but they were all small ones.
They were all small. Now we have just like a collection. We still have some in McDonald's cups that like we start like trees and stuff in them. So, but we can move forward now. I just wanted to bring that up because it's us.
Yes.
Yes.
Speaking of that theme,
We're not sexy or anything. It's fine.
oh gosh, what happened here? No, Mark, I'm sorry, but what is the story?
Okay, this one does. So one night, my girlfriend Beth discovered this fantastic satire Instagram, and I think we spent the entire night going through posts and just laughing at this. And I think I shared one of the posts with Chile once, and she happened to say that her boyfriend Ian knows the guy who runs this site. And my eyes lit up in that. I'm like, okay, we have to make some like disgustingly shitty looking like food photo. So we got this together. I grabbed Chris to help me get this piece of home Lowe's, which was quite an adventure itself.
That was a little sketchy. More than a little sketchy.
Yeah. The one ended with us reaching out the car windows, holding this thing to the roof the entire time. But,
and of course,
behind us,
the windiest night of the week. Like it was just awful. Hands were numb by the time we got back to Mark's house.
But worth it. Also,
yeah,
I think McDonald's.
Yeah.
But yeah, we Chile and I got together. We did the shoot, and of course, what you don't see out of the crop of this looks entirely different from the photo itself. But I took the first shot, looked at the back of my camera, and I was just like, "Oh my god, this looks so shitty 80s basement." I was so excited.
I love that you have like the fold-out table that like my parents had like a 4-stack of growing up.
Yeah, and I told them wear some like either kind of muted red or like mustard yellow shirt, and she just nailed that.
And is this also the one where you flip the like M upside down too, or is that a different one?
Yeah, right here.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
I love
And,
it so
on
much.
the Instagram, they don't say cheeseburger, they say beef sugar. And if you like really zoom in, even went to the details of instead of having beef on the inside of the box there, it says bees.
Yeah, I'm noticing that.
Ah yes.
Fresh
Fresh bees.
Fresh beef. My favorite.
Lee, do you want to talk about the photos then that we picked out?
Yeah. So let's go to, so we did a deep dive on all of y'all's Instas. for
Ah,
Mark,
yes.
so what we did was basically shots that either like really stood out from the rest or really spoke to us, and this remains one of my favorites that you've done, Mark.
This is awesome.
It's because I think a lot of folks watching this will be familiar with Emily Truman and the collage work that she does, but this is a collab that really just takes both of your skill sets and just absolutely nails it. Can you talk about?
And I was gonna say exactly, and that was the goal the entire time. I wanted to use this as an opportunity to kind of blend both of our skill sets together. I normally don't shoot wide angle. I always try to stay as far from the subject as possible to kind of give the most pleasing facial presentation. But for this, I specifically went in close because I wanted that weird, freaky look. I had this in Mulberry Arts. I'm sorry, not Mulberry. I had this in the Lancaster Museum of Art last year for a guest exhibition, and it was very well received. I was so happy to have a piece in a museum for the first time ever.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this is.
This one was also exciting for me because I'm not used to seeing you do, like, as you said, like wide angle, close up stuff. I wouldn't really think of your work as being portraiture. And this has such a different vibe from really any of the work that I've seen from you. And it's exciting to see any artist sort of step out of what they usually do. So I love this piece.
Thank you.
All right, Chris and Serena. So I really enjoyed the work that you were doing with really like makers in their spaces is very much a
okay. I had to look really close.
Yeah, this was a big shift from a lot of what a lot of us are used to seeing from y'all, because it's like your work is very, very fantasy influenced. So this sort of is, I don't want to say like bare bones, but it's very, very much more in the realism field because it's literally Sadie in the shop.
Yes, I just followed people around and that was really fun. And I was planning on doing it hopefully in May or June. I'm going to be doing another series of that, just making people let me take pictures of them again in their spaces.
So what sort of like led you to wanting to do something like this as opposed to your usual style?
I just felt like it. I don't know. I just like contacted some different artists around town, some different shops, and I was like, can I just come into your space and take some pictures of you? And I did that to my Aunt Debbie and a couple other people on Queen Street. So I don't know. And it was also like different for me, so I thought it would be fun.
Awesome. I love it.
Yeah. You just feel like you're there with her, like, and it does capture like Sadie's presence. Like Sadie is such a warm person, and like I just feel it there.
And of course, I saw a plant, and I was like, "Oh, you have a plant here!" Oh, and also Sadie, I dropped off 2 plants for her during this pandemic shenanigans. And she let me do whatever I wanted with them. So I put little bones in them, little skeletons, and it's great.
Awesome.
Those are words that should never be said to you, is do whatever you want.
Well, a lot of people say do whatever you want, and I'm like, dangerous, but okay, I'm going to do it. And usually people are pretty happy about it.
Yeah, you did the same thing. You brought over a plant to us, and it had a rubber ducky in it. And
what did you say, Lee? I don't recall.
I literally can't remember. which is sad
Yeah.
because I was looking at it 20 minutes ago.
It said duck you.
Yes.
Art. I'm also an artist, very serious artist.
Very serious.
Yes. I also made another little plant that said "Let's bone" or "I want to bone you," and little skeleton legs coming out of it. Art.
This is mine that I picked for Serena and Chris. This one, you guys can see this?
Yep.
Yeah, I picked this one because, well, firstly, simply like the time we're in right now where I have to socially distance, and obviously this is all about hands, and there's this warm feeling of touch, and like this is like a mood piece. It feels like it's the same. Is that Nico?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's gorgeous. Like this is just amazing.
Yeah, that was right before like everything went down, and we're all just like touching each other, and we have a whole entire series of butterflies and just hands just touching each other and just like loving each other. Yeah, now we're all just like,
Yeah.
once again, I will touch you someday.
So when I shared the one that y'all got of me for that series, one of my cousins is a nurse, and her first comment was, "This is the exact opposite of what y'all are supposed to be doing."
That's your profile picture right now, right?
I just changed it like yesterday, but it was, yeah.
Lee no longer loves us.
Aw. Wow.
Unloved. We'll be okay. But we
Oh,
see
good.
how
I'm glad to be able to move on from the disappointment.
You know what? Let's go on to the next one. Mark,
That's one of my favorites.
this is amazing, Mark. This is it's brilliant. The way you're using the background with the model, and it just like.
So, can you talk a little bit about this piece?
Oh, you are definitely picking some of my all-time favorites here that I've kind of like forgotten about. This is just joy to see this piece again. I've been wanting to do a piece like this for quite a while, and was waiting most of the winter for the right conditions to happen. It had to have just the right amount of snow, but not too much that it was laying on the asphalt there. Not too much that she'd get buried in it if she laid down. But I remember looking out one Saturday afternoon, just after it had snowed. It was still flurrying quite a bit when I shot this. So I had to use long exposure to avoid seeing all the flakes of the shot. But Beth was so what's the word I'm looking for? So willing to go out there and just get cold and wet, which is a lot for her for this shot. And
Speaking of long exposure, huh?
yeah, yes. I mean, not super long. It's at least like 10 or 15 seconds there.
Also, like, Beth hates being cold. So, like, what a trooper. So this was like last winter, right? Or like a couple years ago?
Yeah, it was probably about 3 years ago, and I wanted to go out and do more shots like this, but we haven't had a really good snow for it in a while. It's a rare opportunity.
I love how you plan that kind of stuff. It's perfect.
Alrighty.
Should we talk about what's in the future? Like, what are you planning on doing next?
Yes.
Go ahead, Chris and Serena. What are you going to do next?
Like immediately or after this is over?
Yeah, no, what are your plans
Obviously,
after
we're
dinner?
ham. We know you're going to do that.
Ham! We got a big old ham to eat. What is our plans? Probably just
What's inspiring you right now?
all the spring blooms. They're very inspiring, and we're part of multiple art groups right now that have challenges, which is really fun. So for me personally, I'm probably going to do some more makeup looks, makeup challenges, and then drag Chris into it. Like, come on, Chris.
You want me to do makeup?
Yeah, Chris, you should do my makeup. all in favor of Chris doing my makeup, say aye.
Yes, I.
Aye. Yes. But yeah, we're not good at planning for the future at all. Not good. Probably gonna do some challenges. Probably gonna do whatever is, I don't know, fun. Maybe do like a Tiger King look. Who knows? Do whatever we want.
What about you, Mark?
What about plans for if and when the quarantine / lockdown situation is lifted?
I actually have a number of shoots I've postponed for this that I want to reintroduce. Again, we've been planning that shoot for, I want to say, since mid-January. So hopefully something can work out there. They want to shoot outside anyway, but then again, with 2 subjects, I can't exactly have them maintain a whole lot of distance. So I don't know, that still might be one that has to wait.
Can you give us sort of a sneak peek about the concept?
No.
I tried.
No,
Good try.
no, I don't talk about my concepts ahead of time. In fact, sometimes I hold on to them too long. There have been so many shoots that I've wanted to do where I see that another photographer happened to do the same thing completely on their own. They weren't copying me. I didn't talk about the idea, but then I see another photographer do it and I'm like, damn it, now I gotta wait like at least a year or 2 before I can do this.
Hmm.
You know, I just
We're like the opposite, that we come up with a concept and we do it like within a week. I'm like, I gotta do it now. No patience.
I think that's, I mean, that's just the way that like we are all like connected in that kind of artistic way. Like I've seen that in like in music history. Like, so my background's in music, and like where you see like composers in different parts of the world come to the same type of style and the same type of solutions and ideas in separate, totally separate from each other. So it's kind of like, it's just like, even if it's the oeuvre of the moment or whatever like that, it's still your expression of what's happening now. And even if it's going to be similar to someone else, it's still valid. Do it.
Yeah, I know most people wouldn't think anything of it, but it's still something that matters to me. I don't know. Yeah.
Gotta go with the trends. I love trends. Like I did a boudoir shoot with toilet paper. It was good. Very good. It's actually like one of my
that's
most
worth $1
popular
million
posts
right now.
to date, and I'm really mad about it. My 2 most popular posts are boudoir with toilet paper, and I made myself into a terrarium, and they're both like 2,000 likes on Facebook. I'm like, that's fine. All the other art I've ever created, like, they have to love that. They're like, yes, boudoir with toilet paper, that's good.
It's so funny how that works too, where like there are shots where I spend like 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever, editing it, and I'm like, all right, this is the most brilliant thing I've ever done, and like 4 people interact with the post. And then if there's something where it's just like, oh yeah, like I did this thing, and then it's wild just trying to like predict how people are going to feel about something, because you can't.
To go along with what Lee was saying, my all-time #1 most liked Instagram post. I wasn't even gonna post, but it's like, I haven't posted anything for a while. I guess I can use this. It's not that great a shot, but it's not bad. I'll toss it up there. Boom! Through the roof.
Mm-hmm. It's almost like, is there a point really in making art thinking about the likes, or do you just do whatever and see what happens?
That's definitely where we're at. Just like we just make it if we want to make it, and that's it. Although sometimes it is annoying when you like spend days on something and you're like, people are gonna love this. It'll be great. Like we did this underwater shoot, and I planned the costumes, got the photographer, I did all the editing. It was insane. Like I was like, people are gonna love this. And it did okay, but it wasn't as much as what I was expecting.
Yeah.
Especially I was underwater, like healing myself, and I was like, like look pretty underwater with wings and a full costume on. I was like, yes. And then like a couple days
Yeah, I
later,
come to realize.
I named myself Marge Simpson, and people are like, "Yeah, Marge Simpson." And I'm like, "Ah!
I've come
Why?"
to realize a lot of my favorites are going to be the ones that get the least attention. Like the trippy one I showed you earlier with the blurred face. I knew ahead of time completely that it wasn't going to do well. That didn't stop me from shooting it or posting it. I'm just saying it was expected, and that's okay. It's what I liked and what I wanted to show. Now, granted, I do like to make sure my work gets out there and gets seen. It's not that, I'm using these Instagram likes to have dinner. I don't feed on that. I don't like need that in my life, but I do appreciate when I know people have seen my art.
Serena, insofar as like those shots that have just your butt, of course you're going to get a lot of likes.
What?
And it's like, so when you're making art, it's like, at least for me, it's like, it's a combination of like, am I doing it for myself? Am I doing it for an audience? If I'm doing it for an audience, which audience am I doing it for? Like, for whom is this? Do I want to interact with this? So if I'm going to spend time doing something intentional, then it's like, you know what, it doesn't matter if it doesn't get a lot of likes, as long as it gets liked from the people who I want it to want to like it, right?
Or if you have fun doing it, because I do a lot of like really ridiculous makeup looks, and it's just, I think that it's funny and fun to do, so I do it.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And then I just post it. I'm like, here you go, take it. And I'm like, yeah, do you like it? But they do, like, whatever.
Let's everybody just take a second, little blurb, say what's going on for you. Happy quarantine, that kind of thing.
Gonna go eat some ham.
Hell yeah. Mark, what about you?
Again, I'm Mark Wiles. Thank you all for listening to this, and if you're still in it this far, I'm happy about that. And I hope you enjoy my work.
All right, thanks everybody.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. That's why I'm wearing a hat.
Yeah.
I put this on. I haven't washed my hair for like 4 days, and I was like,
Oh yeah, I covered myself in cologne before this meeting because I didn't want you guys to smell what's going on.
Yeah, I just like clean here. I'm like, oh, gross.
Yeah, I somehow brushed my teeth before this. Like, I know it doesn't matter, but I still have that compulsion.